All right. And we're live. Welcome to paraglidingtalk.com. I'm your host, Robert Michaels. Glad you're here. We have a great show lined up tonight. We have an open topic tonight. We're going to actually talk about, and I said open topic, where it's not really going to be open talk. See, I got a bunch of stuff I want to cover, but maybe towards the end we'll open up and let you guys ask some questions. But tonight's show, it's going to be about free flying and all things free flying because it's what I'm excited about tonight. Let me just get this all dialed in. By the way, the show is brought to you by PPG Smoke. If you haven't checked out their website, you should. It's ppgsmoke.com. They got all kinds of stuff. Float systems, chase cams. They have the new headset, strobe system, and they've got all kinds of other stuff on there. Go check out their website, ppgsmoke.com. Also, the show's brought to you by paramotorprops.com. You accidentally blow up a prop, you can get a new one really quick at paramotorprops.com and enjoy. What do you got? Are you throwing some stuff on there, Anthony? What do you got? You blowing up props?
I got a prop recently just from them. So
did it showed up?
It showed up.
Okay, that's good.
So
that's two people in the group here that for surely have bought from them, and they do actually send you a prop. Also, the show is brought to you by American Allied Drains and Plumbing. If you're in the San Diego area, you can reach out to them for your plumbing needs. If you mention Paragliding Talk, you get a 10% discount. You want to know how to get a hold of them? 844-777-9055. That's 844-777-9055. Awesome group of people that run American Allied Drains and Plumbing. Trustworthy, honest, and you'll get a good deal too, just because you know paraglidingtalk.com. Really excited about tonight's show. It's one of my favorite things to do is talk about what I'm passionate about, which is free flying. That's the thing that I do the most. It's what the show was created for initially anyways. A lot of people show up each week with a hope that they can learn something about free flying. There's tons of stuff that crosses over with free flying and paramotoring, but I'm just going to say it out front. The difference between paramotor and free flight is chess and checkers. There's a lot more going on for free flying. I feel like there's, you know what I'm talking about. It's a different ball game, and both are fun. Both are games you play, but I feel like there's a different skill set that you have to acquire for free flying, and it takes longer to get better at it because you don't have the thermal button that you can just press like you do on a motor. So I want to just talk about that. This is the summer episode, right? So we're creeping into the summer, and there's all kinds of things that you're going to need to take with you. First, real quick, Sean mentioned something just before the show started. I want to mention that right away. Carabiners, pay attention to your carabiners. When you clip in, you're putting everything on the line. Literally. Everything on the lines. Your risers clip into those carabiners, and check to make sure. If I can just encourage you, try to remember this. Make sure you're clipped all the way in. How many saw that video with the carabiner and it's open and it's a tandem, tons of weight?
That was scary.
Oh, I don't know how you fix that in the air. You got 200 something pounds, and you're trying to pull that thing in. Terrifying.
Just don't make any up and down moves.
Let me add something to that, Robert, real quick.
Yeah.
So when I hook into my carabiners, I'll make sure that nobody's near me when I'm hooking in, and that I'm focused on that, and I double check them. After I hook them in, I double check them and make sure they're both closed, because I have that fear that I might not have that riser all the way in, and it's like that picture with that tandem, and I don't want to go there.
Oh my word. Yeah, that's a terrifying flight. I can't imagine thinking about that. Sometimes I'll be in the air, 3,000 feet in the air, and I'll just look down and just look at both of them thinking, hold it together, guys. Because, you could throw your reserve, I guess, but still, just the thought of that. So this is what I want to talk about. First, pre-flight importance. Replacing your carabiners is the first thing, but I want to talk about like what Ripman's talking about. When you are setting up and you're getting ready, whether it's free fly or motoring, you need to go through systematically go through your stuff. And I want to just mention this one thing. So when I launch my free flight setup, I fly a pod harness, and my pod harness has this little string that goes across my knees. This is the very last thing that I latch. Okay. And that's the thing that closes the pod while you're flying in the air. There's a series of strings that are in there, but it makes kind of like a tent around your lower body. It's pretty cool. And when you're super high up and it's cold, and it can be 100 degrees down on the ground, but at 10,000 feet, it's going to be 50 degrees. You're going to get cold. It's going to happen. So it's nice to be able to close it. Anyways, I can't tell you how many times I forgot that last step, and you think, oh, it's an insignificant little step. Who cares if the thing's open and it's flapping in the wind a little bit? You just fly your glider. I've had it where it forced me to not be able to sit into my seat because it was tangled. And if I put any pressure on it, it was going to break lines. I knew, I could feel it was going to break something inside of there. And then also sometimes you think you're getting into your setup, and because I didn't pull that one string, I didn't have that one adjustment, it was a forced landing. Now, when I launch nowadays, it's not just glass off. I've been launching, when I get off of work, we say don't launch before 5. I'm launching right in the peak of the day. That's what makes our sport a little bit different. Most people warm up to the crazy. We jump into the crazy and we let it cool down to the glass off, right? Everybody on the same page here with what I'm talking about here? So we launch into the craziest part of the day. Now I've got to deal with I've got an unexpected landing. I've got to flip around, and landing midday is terrifying, especially when you're at a mountain site and it's deserty and there's not a whole lot of forgiveness. Just one bubble can change your whole day, right? So anyways, this is a really important part of your pre-flight, the small things. Something else I wanted to mention, and I was thinking about this when I was flying last week. I have a little adjustable camera that has a 360 cam right on my instrument panel, and maybe I'll do a video on that. But when I'm launching, there's a lot of stuff on my instrument panel that can hang up lines. Be careful what you're putting on your lap. Consider, I was watching whose videos were it was a Judson. He's got this thing that he puts on his knee, and so he can put his camera with a gimbal and slip it into his little shin guard knee holder. That's expert level type stuff. When you're launching with these kind of snag points, GoPro on your helmet's a bad idea. I do it, but I literally on a regular basis will have situations where I'm ground handling and I get a line caught on there, and I've put my head down and control my glider without looking, so unless you can totally blindly kite your wing, you don't want to mess with that. Also, you might want to consider what's going to happen if you're in the air, you get a line wrapped around your GoPro because you take a collapse and line slacks and now it's grabbing onto stuff. You better hope that it's just going to rip that GoPro off. If it doesn't, you can tweak your neck, or even, think about your body weight and then add some science in there and see what would happen if somebody just grabbed a hold of that thing and yanked your head back and forth. And it could be violent.
That's the whole thing about that, though. That's very small and very easy, just put it on your helmet, but it's a snag point. And anytime you add anything outside of you, snag point.
So let me add to that.
Anything.
Tonight I did a reverse launch and I got my GoPro caught on the line. And this has been happening a lot lately because I'm looking up and then the GoPro's back. And I said, let me drop the wing. And I dropped the wing down and I got my head out of there. But about a month ago, that happened to me and it was pulling my neck so bad. The glider ended up frontal and collapsing and came down on me, and my motor shredded the glider.
No.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Took out my Gin Camino.
Oh,
But, I want to fly with the GoPro, so I'm fighting it. But tonight when it happened, I knew just control that wing, take it down, even though it was hooked on my head, and I got it away from me, and no harm, no foul. But you got to be careful with that stuff. Like you said, if you're free flying and you get a snag point, and that thing better rip off your helmet or you're going to have a bad day. So.
Yep. I saw some skydivers. They've got some interesting ways
Yeah.
of putting their
Everything's like a
stuff on there.
ramp.
Yeah.
There's no snag point on it. Yeah, I've seen those.
Yeah. So if you're maybe a 3D printer guy, you could probably come up with something, avoid the snag points. I'm sure that they have some stuff you can buy if you go searching around online. But yeah, it's another thing to mess up your flying. So you've got there's a couple reasons that it's important to get control of these little things, because our sport is a victory by 1,000 trophies or a death of 1,000 cuts. If you can conquer the small things and be effective in just managing the small things, you're going to win a victory by all these little things. You're going to have the best XC. You can have the worst XC from just one small, oh, I forgot to put my P tube on. You can't fly right halfway into your cross country flight. You got to pee so bad your eyes are floating in yellow and you can't do anything about it. Unless you're just going to pee your pants or, try to pee outside your pod. But you try to do that, and even that's going to ruin your day. I've never tried it, but I can't imagine that it would be. I mean, I'd have a hard time even getting down there to unzip my zipper. I don't know how it would work. So consider what these little things can change the dynamics. I'll tell you another thing, just talking about that little string that seems so insignificant and not a big deal if you miss it. I've missed it on days where it was a cross country day. I launch, realize that I have to land, but there's not enough thermal activity yet to really get up and go, and end up missing, because that first, I would say, minute and a half when you're flying cross country, you launch at 11 or 12 o'clock, you get these bubbles of lift. And if you don't get in there and get up, you're going to dirt, and everybody else is going to go without you. And guess what you're doing? Retrieve driving. And, whatever,
Walk
that's
of
cool.
shame.
Yeah, you get the hike of shame because you landed at the bottom. You can try to relaunch, but by the time you hike back up, it's probably going to be more on than you want. So it's these small little things that you think, okay, it's not that big of a deal, but it could change the dynamics of your whole flight, or cause you to force a landing that you didn't want to make and hurt yourself. And I know that's an extreme talk about. Okay, so summer flying. There's a few other things I want to just throw in here. So head to toe checks, making sure everything's taken care of. I've been on flights where I forgot to do my chin strap, and my OCD, it would probably be fine just to leave it unstrapped or whatever. And this used to happen on my motorcycle too. I'd be riding along, all of a sudden I would hear this click, 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 click. And I'm like, what the heck's that noise? Yeah. And I would realize, oh my gosh, I didn't do my neck strap. And every once in a while it happens with free flying. You're talking to somebody, and in the conversation you get distracted. And I flew over there, and I flew, and people are, they're excited. You're excited to share, and you realize you're missing stuff. Like Rip said, tell them just hang on a few minutes. I'll talk to you in just a second. Let me just go through this. I got to be methodical about this.
Yeah, or when you land, you'll talk to them when you land. But it really, you can get sidetracked real easy talking to someone. It's happened.
Yep.
So my instructor actually brought up an extra little step too. Is us paramotor guys, what do we have? 5 connections, I think, 2 legs, a hip, a chest, and your helmet. So when you start off clipping in, you want to clip with your legs first, and then when you land and detach and unclip, you end with your legs. So let's see. So start with your legs, because that way, if you clipped in and then you start to unclip or something, do something to move something or whatever, your legs are the last thing that are unclipped, that if you accidentally take off into the air, at least you'll be strapped in at your legs. So I guess it's your first, that makes sense, right? First and last clip job. So
yeah, everybody's going to have their own thing. I've got a little OCD, so it really bothers me when I'm in the air and something's not done. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't do my chin strap. Not a big deal, whatever. But when you're flying in active air and you've got to hold both toggles in the same hand just so you can fix what your situation is, and so you're trying to do this and you're trying to fly this and you're flying sideways, and oh man, I'm all over the place, and you now you're not in your thermal and you're not in your game, you're focused on something else. You ruin your flight. And it takes literally one turn to make the difference on whether or not you're going with your buddies on a cross country or not. One turn. Oh, you went mute on me, Rip.
Sorry. Can I add something to that? So
Yeah.
I remember when I first started free flying in active air, and I realized that you can't let go of the controls. And if you do, you got to like grab them with both hands. So at least you can control the glide. But
Yeah.
I don't think paramotor pilots realize that, because we fly in such nice air most of the time, and you can let those controls go, and just lean to turn and stuff. But when you're free flying, especially in active air, you ain't taking your hands off those toggles.
Yeah.
Not for nothing.
No
If
selfie
you do,
time.
like you said, you're either going to bomb out or you're going to take a collapse, and then you're going to shit your pants. Excuse my language.
And it depends on what type of air you're in, obviously. You're going to know by the time you launch. The other day I launched into some mixing air. We're going to talk a little bit about weather and the difference of temperatures and different things, lapse rate, high humidity, high pressure, low pressure. We're going to talk about that towards the end of the show. By the way, DP donated $10 to the super chat. Thanks, DP. So glad to see you, man. It's been too long. He wrote alms for the poor. Always enjoy the show. Always enjoy the show and friends. Thanks. I'm glad you're here, man. So yeah, when you're hands off, the real fear with hands off, it's not necessarily that you're going to instantly go into some kind of catastrophic event. The issue is that if you don't check your brakes, you feel some depressurization happening, or maybe the front of your wing starts to scoop some air over the top and it wants to collapse in the front. You jam those brakes to pressurize the cells and keep it open just for that second. And maybe that's all you need, is like a literally a fraction of a second to just jab the brakes, put the pressure in the cells and keep it open so it gets through that messy air. If you're flying hands off and that wing goes away, now you're going to be reaching for those toggles and you don't know where they're going to be. If you haven't done an SIV, even with the toggles in your hands, it's chaotic. You're like, whoa, 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 whoa. And fixing it demands the correct responses. So you don't want to have another step in just collecting the controls. I've never had it happen to me. I always, whenever I'm taking selfies or flying hands off, it's usually very smooth, and I'm flying back from El Cap or whatever, and you know when it's time to just chill. If you're flying in new places, hands off flying is probably not the greatest idea until you really know, and you'll know. And then back to your pre-flight checks, everybody's going to have their own little systematic way of doing it. You do you, boo. However you think you need to remember. If you have to write it down and you're that kind of person, write it down. If you're the person that just needs reps, then rep it out a bunch of times. We used to launch at Little Black, and we would do a full pack out. So I would take it up to the top, launch, land at the bottom, pack it up completely, just like I was going to go on a cross country in a different state, bring it up again and launch again. And I would do it 3 times in a row. I mean, you're exhausted by the end of the day, but it was just, that's what we were doing, repping out our mission. And also you learn how to be really quick at putting your stuff together for when your wife calls and tells you, hey, it's time to come home, dinner's ready.
Well, it's part of being methodical too. You want to get in a set pattern where it's exactly the same and not change it. If it's working and it stays working, it's going to stay working, but you have to follow each and every process. And then that leads back to pre-flight. A lot of times guys don't understand. Leave people alone when they're on pre-flight.
Yeah.
When they're trying to get things together and organized and get the right mindset, get everything laid out, get everything connected.
They'd never do that to
I've
somebody
seen that
who's
a lot
doing
of
a
times.
pre-flight on an airplane, right?
Right.
You would never just come, hey, what's this? Oh, let me check out this motor. What does this thing do? Oh, you'd be like, hey, step away from the airplane. I'm doing my pre-flight. I'll talk to you in a second. Well, it's no difference, because it's even more important because you are the aircraft. Your body is the fuselage. It's like we better make sure you're doing this right because you are the airplane. Okay, let's talk a little bit about summer flying. Um, and I know we're gonna move. I want to move quickly through some of these because they're kind of tedious, but they're really important. If you're flying any kind of cross country action, or even if you're just flying local sites here, Blossom, Palomar, some of these sites, and you land out. I had a land out at Little Black, and by the time I got to the Jeep, I had already drank through 2 things of water. Bring some water with you. Another thing, if you're launching early and you're going to do a long cross country, bring some sunscreen. You may not need it when you're flying. I wear a full face helmet. I've got my balaclava covers my neck. I got long sleeves. I got gloves on. I'm totally covered head to toe for sun when I'm flying. But you know where you get burned? When you land. You're carrying all that stuff. You're stripping clothes off. I got sunburned. This is from my son's my son's graduation, and they made us sit out in the sun. It was brutal. No wind. You knew I was cooking. I'm like, oh man, game over. Thought it was going to be overcast. It wasn't. And but just a little bit of sunscreen can totally change your game. And then maybe depending on how far you're planning on going, like I know Rip, he's flown a few times in those Florida cross countries. You underestimate how far you're going. You underestimate how far. It may look like a short little hike when you're in the air, but guess what? That's a long hike. You're flying at like 25 miles an hour. If you're on my wing, we're like 22 miles an hour. So imagine how far you can go, 25 miles an hour, and you're like, yeah, I didn't make it very far. I got one thermal and I went, but you're like 2 miles or 3 miles away. Now you got to carry 50 pounds on your back when you're free flying. So consider that. You better have the not just the wherewithal, but the health to be able to handle that, right? So I want to mention something. A lot of people are going to be coming to San Diego to fly because this is the flying season for San Diego. Everybody's stoked about Torrey Pines is popping. Everybody's flying at Torrey Pines right now. Couple things you need to know. One, if you're coming to fly Torrey Pines, you need to be a P3, and make sure that you have your United States Hang Gliding and Paragliding Association card with you with your number. And then also, it's not free. You got to pay. If you're going to fly just for one day, you got to pay $10. They want you to take a video where you read the waiver and then you sign the waiver. Don't be surprised if you get some resistance when you get to the counter. They're going to ask you questions, not necessarily just because they want to be rude or whatever. They're asking you questions because they want to make sure that you are legitimately covered if something goes bad, and that you're not going to go out there and hurt yourself because of negligence and just not knowing. Looking at Torrey Pines is probably one of the safest places to free fly. It is a great place, but also has a lot of inherent dangers. So pay attention to what they're talking about. And they've got a little video that they make. I think Phil Russman is the one that made the video. They ask you there's some certain rules that they lay out. Pay attention to that. Don't be a jerk, and just work with the people in the desk. Be nice to them. They just came there to get a job so that they can do something fun and exciting. And just because you came in from out of town doesn't mean that you have the right to be a jerk. And sometimes they're mean because they've been treated bad all day. So, anyways, I very rarely see people getting treated harshly or rude there. I know it does happen, but anyways, just thought I'd mention that.
Please reach out to me because I have discount tickets for those flying sites. So I'll make sure I've got 2-for-1 offers right now going on.
Yeah, I'm selling 2023.
I'll get you my Venmo.
Salton Sea flying tickets. They're on sale already. So rating systems are important. I was going to talk about that, but it's super boring. Do that on your own time. Go check out the rating systems for free flying. P1 means pretty much nothing. Anybody can have a P1. All you have to do is just exist. P2 is a license to learn. That's 30 launches and landings. or maybe it's 20, I can't remember. And I'd encourage you, if you're doing it, whether you're doing it a legit way or not, record your launches and landings. This is very helpful later on. You can analyze your landings, especially if you have a screwed up one where you land in the bushes. You can throw it on YouTube and other people can learn from it too. But it's really good to, it's really important to just kind of methodically go through your launches and landings on video. If you got kids, have the kids film, or maybe it's your wife, have her film for you, or one of your homies, and get those videos and manage those. Mad Sloper said, didn't Kylo get yelled at while flying at Tori? He did. The reason why he did is because there was somebody coming in to land already, and so he was coming in at the same time, wasn't really paying attention. One of the two should have diverted, but I think he was landing while a student was landing. And so that student was, focused, and Kyle should have aborted and flew around for a second and come back and land. But also the guys at Torrey Pines know who's a visitor and who's not. So
it was a simple mistake. I mean,
yeah.
New place, new rules, new everything, and there's a lot going on. And Kylo's used to flying around other people too. So, he's probably assuming that, hey, everyone here flies here, has been flying here for a while. They know where they're going. I know where I'm going. Everything's good. It's a very simple mistake.
Gerald Colipos said he's got a 55-gallon bag, put his wing in if he has to land out. That's a smart idea. Have something to put your wing in, because man, you get tired quick holding your wing in your hand like this. It does not take long at all. Give it about 15 minutes and you're sweating like a pig, and you got the thing draping around you, so it's keeping you from getting any kind of wind to cool you off. So yeah, that's a great idea.
Well, I kind of roll mine up in my lines and try and get it so compact that I can lace my fingers. But
that helps.
It helps, but you're gonna get tired still.
And hot and sweaty if it's hot out, summertime. Mad Sloper said P3 requires 90 flights, 20 hours, 30 days of flying plus the test. Very good. So there's other requirements too. If you've just got those details, you're still going to need to have your instructor sign you off, and that requires some paperwork going to the United States Hang Gliding and Paragliding Association. That information, they'll kick you back a number. That information will be given to Torrey Pines. Then Torrey Pines will register your deal. Will Fly donate $5 to the super chat. He said, Resurgence PPG rocks. Thanks, Will Fly. You rock too. Okay, so what should you expect when signing up for free flight, especially in America? A few things that and I want to just real quick touch base with the people that are trying to cross over into free flight world. A few things that you're going to need to expect. One of those is that you're going to have to wait for the weather. So if you're planning on coming from out of town, choose your time wisely, because if you try to do it in the wrong season, you're going to be greatly disappointed, because you're going to spend a bunch of time ground handling. You're not going to get much air time. It's, in my opinion, one of the most important things is ground handling, learning how to deal with your wing in any situation. If the winds are a little strong, that shouldn't just keep you on the ground because you're like, oh, well, I don't want to get embarrassed. Managing your wing is a tall tale sign of how long you've been flying. And it's nice to see guys come in and bust their wing out, and you don't have to worry about them. I get nervous when I see guys getting dragged all over launch, and they're claiming, because flying at Blossom that's a P4 site. That means you better be at that expert level. And I've seen some guys that are nowhere near P4 level kiting skills, and I myself started too soon there. There's a lot of dangers lurking in the bushes. Get dragged off or slammed on your head. And so when you're signing up for free flying, know that there's going to be some things that are completely backwards compared to your paramotoring. If you're coming in straight from nothing, you're making the right decision to start with free flying and then segue into paramotoring. That's my opinion. Some people would argue you can do whatever you want, but I think it's really important because of all the dynamics that are involved. Let's talk about summer weather. Oh, we're at the half-hour mark. Wow, that went super fast.
I tried to segue that into Calamity Kite Clinic there.
CalamityKiteClinic.com.
Very nice. Now, let me point something out here really quick. Here, this is kind of an interesting observation. Maybe it's just me. I don't know. There's not any difference between P1 and P on, except for one letter. I'm just saying.
That's funny.
All right, we ready to spin this wheel?
Yeah, let's do it.
All
And
right.
with that, get your
No more
training
names in the
from-
wheel. No more names in the wheel. Here we go. And I'll let Gringo go ahead and do the ad, or Robert can do the ad. Ready? I'm going to
Yeah.
spin.
Spin to win. The spin of this wheel is brought to you by Calamity Kite Clinic. CalamityKiteClinic.com. Yeah, Sean's got a pretty cool thing going on for if you want to learn how to kite better. Pretty awesome. This is one of the most critical things in our sport, being able to handle your wing on the ground as well as in the air. But obviously, it starts on the ground. Go check out his website and sign up with some training. He's not ridiculously expensive, and it will be worth your while in the end. Even if you just get to hang out with him at a fly-in somewhere, and you get to learn something. Yeah. Oh, by the way, we're giving away one of those retractable keychain deals. Oh man,
On Lamel.
Mom almost won. It's either Craig Couch or Mike S. Both of them moderators.
Rip man.
Aha.
You got 3 moderators in a
Craig
row.
Couch.
Craig Couch.
Congratulations.
I'm gonna write this down. Craig Couch, winner, chicken dinner. Craig's won a bunch of stuff on the show over the years. Craig, please reach out to me on the website, paraglidingtalk.com.
I don't see him in the chat anymore. Just saying. He
Yeah,
better not have just showed up for the past 2 minutes.
he logged in just to win.
Hey, I want to mention, believe it or not, I mean, we all, as paramotor guys, we learn to kite, right? So we can get into the air. And then we get into the air and we forget about continuing to kite. And there's no place that you will need it more than when you want to transition from paramotoring to free flight, because you really need to know. I mean, it was definitely not a shocker for me, but it was okay. I got to learn. I got to know how to do what I'm doing here, and I got to learn a little bit more, because it requires more skill and so forth. It's
I
bigger
can't
wins.
stress it enough, Anthony. I tell everybody, I mean, everybody, especially I can see people that just have no business flying certain gliders. They can't even kite. And I just tell them, I said, you got to practice. Even guys I fly with. There are a couple guys I fly with, no names mentioned. I said, you got to practice your reverse kiting.
And that's what I do. Why I do what I do when I'm at fly-ins. I get a glider out. I show people what they can do with it. People wouldn't think that they could get a glider out and not have to walk, forward or reverse, depending on how you're facing and what you're doing. If you're doing forward kiting practice or ground handling practice, or if you're doing it in reverse. I've seen people that have constantly just walked backwards when the wind was blowing enough to hold the glider up by itself. It's designed to fly. You have to allow it to fly, and you observe what it's telling you, and you respond by how it's telling you. And I can agree wholeheartedly with you, Rip Man, because I've seen it myself, where guys they're like, oh, I've never kited my wing, I've never ground handled my wing, and it's like, well, what are you doing? You're getting lucky. Time and time again. One of these times it's going to catch you. It catches everybody, but it's better to be knowledgeable and experienced with what you could do than not have an idea of anything. It's better to know what you can't do, so that way you don't try to do that.
Robert, how are your kiting skills?
I'm a strong B.
Okay.
Strong B. I feel like everything kind of falls apart when I'm launching no wind and forward launching no wind. Not happy about that. I don't have any feeling in my little glider. I have a Sirocco 2 and it's 17 meter. When I've grown to hate that wing. When I launch that wing, I get zero feedback. So I can pull the brake all the way down and I don't feel nothing. So what I do now is I don't even try to pull on the brakes or anything. I just take off running until I get as much power into it as I can, and then I barely start to do stuff with it because it always lies to me. Gives me this false impression that I'm good, that I'm flying, and that that little amount of, you can pull the brakes and you'll get about 2 inches of lift. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, sure.
It's false. In that wing, you can pull it, you don't get any altitude.
Why don't you
Nothing.
sell that wing and get something that's a little more forgiving on the
I-
launch?
I need
You
to.
know?
I've
There
been
are so
flying my
many wings
Delta
that
2.
launch so effortlessly, and I've flown the
Yep.
wing you're talking about, and I know what you're talking about. It's a little light in the
busy.
brake pressure. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
and that's another thing, having the right tool for the job.
Yeah.
Bring the right tool with you,
Yep.
you know?
And if you don't
Absolutely.
bring the right tool, you'll break the tool that you did bring. That's
Or
what happened to me a
yourself.
couple times now. I went all the way out to the desert. Anyways, that's a different show. So let's talk a little bit about what I say just before we went on break. Summer. We're talking about summer flying. There's going to be a whole different dynamic to your flying summer versus fall or spring. A couple of those things, especially in Southern California, is your prefrontal, postfrontal days. What does that mean? When you get into free flying, you're going to talk more and more about postfrontal days. Postfrontal means after a front moves through, and it leaves behind a low pressure scenario. So what does that mean to the free flying guy? Low pressure flying is marvelous. And I'll tell you why. It creates, typically, you'll find with low pressure weather or low pressure atmosphere, you are going to have thermals that are breaking through and there's no inversion layer, and you have unstable air. Okay, so stable air, picture stable air is very just stable. You picture the smoke goes up and it hits a wall and then it'll spread out at the inversion layer. You ever seen that? Like if there was a huge fire, it'll hit the top and it'll just flatten out like it's upside down table or something, right? On stable days, you're not going to have as much fun free flying because stability means that your air mass, let's say the top of lift is 3,000 feet and the bottom where you're launching from is, let's say, 800 feet for the sake of the conversation. That air needs to have a difference in temperature between here and here. The greater the delta in the difference of the temperature is going to determine how often and the amount of thermals that are going to be out there for you. You can typically tell where the thermals are on a day like this. They'll be marked at the top with puffy clouds, and we call those cloud streets. And I hope I'm not talking too basic for you tonight, but this is going to change your life if this is new to you. So when you look around and you see clouds, typically those clouds were formed based on this temperature meeting dew point. Okay, so temperature meets dew point, humidity, you have moisture, clouds make. The thermals start off at the ground, they push their way through, and that's your engine for free flying. So what you're looking for, low pressure and high humidity, right? The higher the humidity, the smoother the air. It's just a dynamic. So high humidity, smooth. Now, high temperature delta, and you're going to go high, typically. It's funny to me here in San Diego, you'll be flying we'll go after work to Blossom. And once you get up, you'll work the face of El Cap. And Rip, you got to come and try this, bro. It's amazing. You work the face of El Cap and you can see the inversion layer. And then you'll, if it's low, you'll break through, boop, 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 and you're taking the ridge lift up, and then you get through it, and then you climb up above, or maybe it's at Palomar, you climb above the inversion layer, and you can see above it. It's crazy because down low, everywhere you look is kind of hazy. Once you get up above it, clear as day, right? And so something to look forward to when you're trying to break through. Inversion layer is there'll be different days that will have, sometimes, this is very rare, but it will happen. You'll have multiple layers that you have to break through. You'll have a layer of mixing air. So you'll launch and you'll catch a thermal, and then all of a sudden you'll feel like what the heck? The wind just thrown all over the place. And that's because your thermal is having to work through some mixing air. This happens a lot right here because of coastal air that's coming in. So you've got the kind of weird high pressury air, and all day the marine air is making its way out to Blossom, and then finally once it gets there, it's all turbulent and kind of mixed up with the different air. These days are not necessarily the most fun days because you're launching at like 5 o'clock and it's like a washing machine. You jump into your thermal and you're like, okay, this is good, I'm going up. But man, you're managing your wing more than you're enjoying yourself. So these are things you're going to expect when you're flying in the summer. It's going to be hotter than normal, so be prepared for that. Obviously, like I talked about, some sunscreen and some water. But also, you're going to need to know that on certain days, the thermic activity will wreck you. Your brother said, why am I not a news weather man? It's really scary. There's some guys in this sport that are literal meteorologists. They're insane. I try to get him on the show. There's a guy, his name is oh my gosh, why is it slipping my mind right now? I'll think of it in a minute.
You never learned more about the weather until you got into flying now.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
So true.
Once you started free fly or
Yes.
motoring, you learned about clouds and weather and wind and moisture and temperatures and everything. It's incredible.
Yep. I've mentioned this 100 times in the show. It's worth mentioning again. Dennis Pagan wrote a book called Understanding the Weather. Simple book. Incredible. Really good insight. And it's from a guy who free flies. I think he did hang gliding first and then he did paragliding. And yeah, it's amazing. Something I also want to mention about summer flying. So there's a group of guys that will fly from Laguna to Palm Springs, about 100 miles or so. Very big boy flying. You're up in between the 10 and 15 and 18,000 range. Some of those days you're going to really need to bring some oxygen with you. Don't let people lie to you that you're okay to fly at those altitudes without supplemental oxygen. I've talked to a couple of these guys. They're Wild West guys that, I was flying at 24,000 for a while. Listen, bad idea. You don't know what your brain can handle when you're lacking oxygen. And you start to get really weird. You feel like you're breathing, but you're a fish out of water at that altitude. And your brain starts to do stupid stuff. You start to get loopy. And like Phil Russman, he didn't realize that they'd been flying for 8 hours. He right away got to altitudes requiring oxygen. Well, about halfway through the flight, he ran out of supplemental oxygen. So he tells a story. He's following invisible paragliders into tiger country, deep into tiger country in Utah. We're talking like hundreds of miles deep in the middle of no man's land, because in his mind, he was following the gaggle. There was no gaggle in front of him. He was the lead guy. He's by himself way out in the middle of nowhere. By the time he landed and packed up his stuff, he didn't even know where he was. It's just a very dangerous thing. What were you going to say, Sean?
There was a podcast that I'd ran. Well, it wasn't a podcast. It was somebody that posts on YouTube all the time, and he goes by 757. He actually had the communication from the tower to a pilot that was in a plane that was hypoxic, and he was carrying on a conversation with the tower, but wasn't making any sense. He sounded like he was drunk. It was because he had lost control of his plane. It wasn't responding to his inputs and actions, but only gaining altitude. And they finally got him to where he could lose altitude. And it was a night and day difference between the sense he was making when he was hypoxic and when he was at a lower elevation where he could get oxygen. It was a very, very, very interesting, because you would swear the guy was drunk. He's got to be drunk. I mean, he's slurring his speech and eyes up in the air. No, he was hypoxic.
Yeah.
And
you don't want to be drunk.
Another guy in the tower had pointed that out and said, I think he's hypoxic. I think he's at a very, very high altitude. So, yeah.
Yeah. Tie your brain behind your back and try to fly. That's what happens when you get epoxy. I haven't experienced it. Maybe just a touch of epoxy, but love you too, buddy. Not enough time to cause problems. But again, this is one of the aspects of flying summertime. Now, it's probably not going to happen at Blossom, but this is important that you check your weather before you go. And this is another thing that I feel like is maybe under appreciated by newer pilots. Talk to the locals. Obviously, that's going to be the easiest route. But if you don't have the convenience of the local feedback, or maybe they're not interested in talking to you, or you don't have that connection with them yet, start studying that weather. Maybe you're going to make a trip out to San Diego. Download the app. There's we use XC Skies, very convenient website, very convenient. You can buy it by the month. Maybe you just want to pay, I think it's like $5 for the month. I always buy the annual. It's $40 for the annual. And it gives you a whole bunch of different weather models. And this is important because, again, there's going to be days when it may look perfect, but out in the mountains, it's going to be gusting up to 40 or 50 miles an hour. You do not want to land and have to deal with a wing in a 45 mile an hour gust. That is a really bad situation. It cannot go good. You get dragged into trees, bushes, whatever, cactuses, you're out in the desert. Mad Sloper was just talking about high pressure in the desert. Flying is always high pressure in the desert. Now, when you have this understanding of what to expect, and you know that the wind direction is going to change in the evening, you're launching at noon. By the end of the day, it's going to be going from south when you launch to landing when it's north. These are important little details you need to have, right? You're not always going to be able to use your phone while you're in the air. Sometimes you're not going to get signal. This is just a note about cell coverage. You may think because you're higher up that your phone is going to work better. Not the case. The cell systems are created pointed down from the higher places to hit the cells where the people are, not you at 8,000 feet. And when you land out, especially when you're going on a far cross country and you're in the middle of tiger country, your phone's not going to work. So you're going to need something else to communicate. I just want to encourage you, get a Garmin InReach Mini. That's what I use, or the Spot. Both of them have their pros and cons. I chose to go with the Garmin InReach Mini because it's convenient. I use it for both paramotoring and free flying. It is really convenient. You preset your little messages. Landed here safely, I'm good, gonna hike. Or you preload, whatever. If you connect to your phone, you can connect your phone directly to the unit, and then you can send text through that, but it's GPS. Here's a little note. turn that thing on when you launch. Don't wait until you've crashed into the side of the hill to decide you're going to turn it on. And now you're waiting for it to connect to 5 satellites before it can send out the SOS to get the helicopter to come and pick you up out of your demise. Summer flying is going to be bigger thermals. Summertime is going to bring more high pressure days. What comes with high pressure days? Sharper thermals, more violent thermals. They're going to take you up to the moon quick. The other day, I launched into something that I'm pretty sure was in that 1,500 feet per minute type stuff. 1,500 feet per minute that's big boy level 9 pucker factor. It was intense. And, you go with it. Let me just say this. Stay in the thermal. You're going to get spooked. It's going to scare you. It's going to feel like it just wants to rip you out of your seat. Don't give in to the fear of wanting to leave. Take that thing up. It gets smoother at the top. Take that thing up to altitude. Get yourself some altitude. Even if it gets more rowdy and it blasts you out of the top and your wing blows up, at least you got a bunch of altitude to work it out before you go crashing to the earth. It's one of those things that I had to learn in the beginning days, that you don't jump out of the thermal just because you're a little nervous. Stay with it and hook into it. It's amazing to me how much more you can give breaks while you're in a good strong thermal. You're not going to spin your glider. Put some pressure in there and really lean yourself into those thermals. Obviously, if you're thermal flying, you already know that, and you should be expecting, if you're launching before 5 in the summer here in San Diego, you're going to get blasted to the moon. These are summertime things, right? Let's mention something real quick about SIV training and the benefits. So SIV training is going to teach you how to fix your blown up wing. Really important to be able to know how to hit the reset button. If you ever skate, if you've ever been to a skate park, you will always revert back to like this one setup. You'll when I go to drop in, like I'll skate this one pool. I do the same thing every time. I'm not very good at it. I drop in, I skate over the light, I come back, I do 2 little loops, and then I start to feel my legs get tired, and then I go and then I let some other kid go, right? Or my son or whoever's skating. But I do the same thing every time for the reset. This is something that we do with paragliding. If you get your wing all wrapped inside of itself, sometimes we'll be flying. I fly a C wing now. It's a Alpina 4, really lightweight material. It wants to do this horseshoe stuff. So I know that when this thing's going to go bad, what's going to happen is a tip's going to want to come around front, and it's going to end up in the lines, and I'm going to have some weird stuff going on, and I'll be falling faster than I want to fall. When I did my SIV, I did it with my Alpina 2, and it was funny that when I was going through my full stall learning, when it popped out, there was a couple times where I had a really big cravat stuck in my lines and it's just flapping in there. And I try to fix it, pull on the stabilo, try to pump the brakes super hard, fix it, lean this way, lean that way, tried all kinds of different things. But the end was a full stall reset. Wow, pops back open, catch the surge, good to go. SIV will teach you all the limits. And it depends obviously on how wild you want to be and what you want to learn. But it's a really good idea to sign up for an SIV. By the way, you can do that at maxacro.com. This is a good segue into a commercial. Maxacro.com is the website. He's got a bunch of stuff going on in Turkey, a great flying site, great place to get some training. I want to encourage you to sign up and do an SIV. Max was the one was my instructor on radio when I did my SIV, and it was incredible. You can go check out the video actually if you follow my channel, or if you haven't subscribed, also please subscribe, and eventually it'll show up in your feed. It's my first SIV or something like that. But really great stuff was learned that day. I can't tell it to you. There's things that you're going to learn in SIV that you can't read in a book. There's things that can't be taught to you from mouth to ear. You're going to have to just do it. You can't explain riding a bike. Well, you're going to get on and there's going to be this time we're going to feel balance, and then balance is going to, then you just pedal and then the balance kicks in and then you can ride. You can't describe that. You can't explain it. Same thing with paragliding. It's pretty crazy what happens. It takes time, just discipline, and eventually you get to the place where you can fly the mustache. You know what I mean? So that next level. I want to mention also Nebraska PPG, Josh Bowden. He has a school in Nebraska. He's one of the sponsors of the show. Go check out him if you're going to be in Nebraska and you want to get some paramotor training. He's awesome and really patient, really level-headed guy. Will get your feet off the ground. Amazing place to fly there in Nebraska. Also, the show's brought to you iFly Indiana powered paragliding. If you're interested in flying paramotor, there's no better place to get proper training than iflyindiana.com. Kevin and his team will get your feet off the ground. That's iflyindiana.com. Also, the show's brought to you by Lone Star Paramotor. If you're in the Lone Star State of Texas, you can reach out to Ron Turan and his team for world-class training. That's lonestarparamotor.com. And you ain't going to get all those up, gringo. Not fast enough, bro.
Should have him set up already.
He's got him set up. That's what's funny.
I got distracted. Someone was texting me. Someone was texting us funny stuff.
Got him.
It's hard to fill Craig's job, isn't it? It
is. Wow, Mom donated $20 to the super chat. That was very kind of you, Mom. Too many. Will Fly said you can't teach a feeling. So true. With a motor. Daniel Roush said, wish someone had an SIV course that I could do with a motor. That's an interesting thought. I don't think you could potentially show up and just launch your motor and go send it. At an SIV where other guys are getting towed up by a boat. You could just talk to them and say, hey, I'd really like to get on radio and use my motor. It's just dangerous. You
understand, Rob. Yeah, it's dangerous. That motor and you're swinging violently. Someone that says that should go do an SIV course first and then see if he wants to try it with his motor after that.
Yeah, go.
It's pretty violent without the motor.
Yeah, go talk to Marlon Jonat right now about doing acro with a paramotor. his stuff that's popping out right now is so funny.
Well, then the stress is on the gear. I mean, you're going to have stress on those arms.
It's not even that. It's just so much stuff to get tangled up. And then you're throwing.
Yes. There's a lot of stuff on that frame that will catch
and that weight falling, when that wing hooks up and shoots forward, if you're not on top of it, you're going to fly right into it.
You're going in. My gosh, what's going on around here? John Wayne donated $10 to Super Chat. Tommy donated $50 to the Super Chat. Thank you guys, man.
Wow.
Humbled right now. Wow.
Awesome.
Well, good stuff, Robert. This stuff we got to stay on this stuff. I would say at least seasonal. Just keep reminding people about pre-flight stuff. Safety stuff, weather stuff. We want everybody safe, right? In the end, here we all we're all flying to have a good time. We want to keep everybody as safe as we can.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's such an important thing. I think maybe next time we do a open topic or a conversation on free flying, we'll talk a little more about lapse rate. That's a really cool thing that I've been focused on lately. I'll take a look at the temperature at the ground, and then I'll look at the weather stations up on the mountain, and when it's high, I'm like, oh, and guess what, guys? It's going to be good. And you can only tell so much from the weather call. But I mean, that temperature difference it's a really big deal, and makes for a really fun day. So I love to come and predict the weather, and I'll tell, hey guys, we're in for a treat tonight. And everybody, I hope so. I like to be able to know have a little insight into it. So yeah, I encourage you to support the show on Patreon and PayPal if you can do it. Keep the show going. It keeps me encouraged, and I can buy cool stuff for giveaways and stuff like that. And obviously it is a job putting this together. Somebody asked me the other day, man, I really, I really love the show, and I don't know how you do it. It burns up a Thursday night where I could be flying right now. There's people flying at Blossom right now, but I really am passionate about the show, and I love doing it. And so I'm really grateful for the community and everybody that's been involved and everybody that's been supporting the show for a while. So if you want to do that, if you think I'm worthy, you can go to the website and just click on the PayPal button. It'll walk you through what to do. You sign up for a cup of coffee. Price of a cup of coffee, you can support the flying community in a way that there's a show that they can come and watch and learn something, might save their life or keep them from getting broken. Don't forget about Resurgence PPG. The website is resurgencepppg.com. If you want to support our men and women of uniform, you can make a tax-deductible donation to resurgencepppg.com. And when you do donate, you're sponsoring those who put their lives on the line for your freedom. Reach out to Todd Scandrett. You can do that on Facebook too, and let them know what you're up to. They are a 501c3, so you can have your small businesses donate to them, and it's a tax write-off, so it's pretty awesome. That's it. That's all I got for you guys. We're going to go to the after show. Man, that was a quick hour.
It went fast.
Goes fast when you're excited.
I tell you what, that flew by.
It's when you're really excited about stuff, And we covered quite a bit of ground, so I'm glad everybody got to hang out. So if you want to join the after show, you're welcome to come on. I'm going to put the actually the code in the description tonight, so you guys can all jump on.
There you go.
Yeah, you guys could come and hang out for a little bit. Wow, we already got 100 views. I haven't even turned it off yet. Awesome. Thanks, guys. Really appreciate you. If I don't see you in the air, I'll see you on there. Have a great night. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Anthony Peregringo. And thanks, Ripman. I appreciate you coming on the show and moderating tonight live on the air, paraglidingtalk.com. Have a great night.